Welcome to the Gay Therapy LA podcast, the show that empowers gay men to live their fullest, healthiest lives. Whether you're navigating relationships, mental health, intimacy, finances, career, or personal growth, Ken Howard, a licensed clinical social worker in California, certified psychiatric social worker, and ASEC certified sex therapist, is here to guide you with over 30 years of experience, specializing in gay male individuals, couples, and polycules. As the founder of GayTherapyLA.com and GayCoachingLA.com. And now, today's episode.
Hi, I'm Ken Howard, and welcome to the Gay Therapy LA podcast. Today, I want to talk about the success principles for gay men, what we can learn from Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield is an inspirational author that I've admired for many years, and his book, The Success Principles, How to Go From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be, is a really, really good book, not only for what Jack says in it, but also for the many, many quotes that he curates from what others say. And it's a really inspirational book that helped me a lot, especially in the early years of my practice. So as a gay men specialist, psychotherapist, certified sex therapist from ASEC, and life, career, relationship, and coach for over 3 decades now, long time, I've worked with thousands of gay men on building not just healthier relationships and sex lives, but stronger careers, relationships, financial security, health, creative projects, and overall quality of life. And in that time, I've seen one universal truth. Gay men thrive when they learn how to set and pursue goals that are authentic, empowered, and unapologetic. So Jack Canfield's The Success Principles, How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be, remains one of the most comprehensive, actionable personal development books ever written. While it wasn't written specifically for gay men, the themes within it deeply resonate for those of us who've had to fight to define our own lives against the current of social expectations and minority stress and family rejection or internalized shame. But this article highlights key principles from Jack Canfield's work. Not all 64 principles that he outlines, but the ones that I believe most powerfully serve gay men today. I've also drawn connections between these ideas and the themes I've offered across my Gay Therapy LA blog on gaytherapyla.com/blog, here on the podcast, in my public speaking engagements, and my webinars, where I help gay men tackle issues from career burnout to community competition to building self-worth after trauma, and of course coping with all the psychiatric diagnoses, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, ADD, OCD, PTSD, all of those and more. Let's take a deeper look into Canfield's success principles. Number one that he offers is take 100% responsibility for your life. Canfield opens the book with a tough but empowering truth. No matter what your past, you are responsible for your future. That's just the adult prerogative. And this can be hard for gay men who faced discrimination from others or family estrangement or religious trauma. These are all topics I've discussed in detail in prior episodes. But taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself or excusing the oppressive, discriminatory, and hateful actions of others, but it does mean reclaiming your power. I use that word a lot in my practice about reclaiming, because what it means is that if something has been taken away from you that wasn't theirs to take, the sovereignty of your body, your dignity, your peace of mind, you can reclaim that, especially in things like trauma recovery. You're reclaiming the power and you're reclaiming the quality of life, including your right to an enjoyable adult sexuality, including your ability to have a successful career and successful relationships. You're reclaiming your power because you're taking responsibility for your life. Self-empowerment and reclaiming are probably my two favorite words in both my therapy services and my coaching services. They overlap in some ways and they're very different in others because they imply a sense of hope and a fuel for directing or redirecting your life according to your own values and priorities and goals, your authentic self for theoretically a very long lifetime. You're not responsible for what happened to you, but you're 100% responsible for what you do next. So one of Canfield's most interesting phrases from one chapter is event plus response equals outcome. You might not be able to always control the events that happen to you, but you certainly can control your side of that equation, your response to get the outcome you want, or at least mitigate it or influence it in some way. In my practice, I see gay men liberate themselves from years of victimhood the moment they accept that they can design their future. Gay men are supposed to be good at designing, says the kind of true stereotype, regardless of the hand that they were dealt, especially in your family of origin, but also growing up and living in a generally homophobic or heterosexist global society. Number 2 of those principles is decide what you want. Many of us have spent years silencing what we truly want in love, in sex, in our career, in prosperity or creative pursuits because we fear judgment. Canfield urges us to be boldly specific about our desires, not vague wishes, but actual written down emotionally charged goals. He cites in one chapter some formal academic research from Harvard, I believe, that said people who have goals do better in life than those who don't. And people who write down their goals do better still. And people who write down their goals and refer to them often, such as having them on a card in their pocket or nowadays probably on your phone, do the best yet. So having goals laser focuses our unconscious mind toward thinking and behaviors that are in service to our goals, whatever those are. Our unconscious minds are like a well-trained dog. You say sit, and it does. That's why positive affirmations are so important to use as a cognitive tool over and over again. Affirmations can sometimes start out as statements that are not yet true. But if we repeat them often enough, our thoughts and words and actions all align to influence our environment such that they become true. And then instead of sounding like pipe dreams, they simply state current fact. If you have an affirmation like, I take joy that I am my ideal body weight, or I am grateful that I have all the money I need, or I cherish that I dwell among people who love me, whom I love as well. New Age author Louise Hay was also a big proponent of this. A lot of examples where she has said this in her books or her lectures or her audio recordings. And Jack Canfield and Louise Hay overlap in ways that I personally find very empowering. And I borrow from them a lot in my work with clients. They're very inspirational and they're very compelling because I think their material really works. Materials can include books, certainly, or audio recordings, even YouTube seminars, especially of Louise Hay. And I think they pay off well beyond their actual cost. So in sessions, I often ask clients to identify what they want, not what they think is allowed. That could be opening a business. I have a whole web-based seminar on starting your own business, a guide for gay men, on the Thinkific webinar platform. Thinkific it's a tough word. It's not my favorite name for a website. But if you think of the word think, like think your thoughts, Thinkific, IFIC, thinkific.com. And look for my name, Ken Howard, you'll find the webinar that's about gay men starting your own business. And people said at the time that I launched that just a handful of months ago, what's the difference between gay men starting your own business versus and somebody else starting their own business. And not a whole lot, but because I focus on gay men in my materials, I added some extra material about why gay men might have extra challenges and maybe even extra rewards from running their own business. So if you're leaving a job that drains you, including situations of workplace bullying, which is one of my long-term clinical interests, or pursuing a so-called unconventional lifestyle that honors who they really are, such as the leather community or latex or BDSM or poly or kink communities. So it's about what you want and not what you think is allowed, assuming, of course, like we always say, that you're talking about consenting adults. So number 3 is believe it's possible. Jack Canfield emphasizes belief as a cornerstone of success. Gay men often grow up being told, implicitly or explicitly, that our lives would be smaller or sadder or less valid than everyone else's. And that conditioning can linger well into adulthood, sabotaging our own ambition. I think it eclipses, the considerations of things like male privilege or white privilege, if we happen to be white, or other privileges that we might have, because being gay puts you in a LGBT community minority status that is subject to discrimination or to hate crimes or to some kind of negative experience that straight men do not have. So there is definitely a straight male privilege, even though male privilege might apply to gay men some of the time. I think it's applied to me sometimes and some of the guys I work with. But we are still considered, even gay white men are still considered an oppressed minority legally and socially. And it's not a contest to see which group can be the most oppressed. But it's because homophobic or heterosexist people really truly believe, as they have been carefully taught, as the song by Rodgers and Hammerstein goes, you must be carefully taught, from South Pacific, to hate the people their relatives hate. There are people who believe that white people are inherently, by their very being, superior to all other races, always, regardless of who it is. And there are people who believe that any and all men are superior to any and all women just 'cause. That Americans are inherently superior to any other nationality of the world. That Christianity is the only legitimate religion in existence. And that all LGBT people, wherever and whoever, are always inferior to cisgender and straight people. Everybody, all of them. And they believe these things, and they assert those beliefs on each other and on us as if they were mandated to do that. So it's no wonder that the gay men that I work with need lots of reminders that we are just as worthy of anyone else of having our dreams and goals met. That we challenge the beliefs that we might have accidentally incorporated into our own psyches, that somehow our goals are not possible or not worthy of being possible. That's simply not true. Therapy in the context of treating some kind of psychiatric disability like depression helps to rewire that. And coaching helps to rewire that by establishing different ways of thinking about our life goals. I work with clients to challenge limiting beliefs, like a lot of my colleagues would. A lot of providers work to challenge your limiting beliefs and embrace something a little more useful and positive and generative, using techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, existential therapy, developmental therapy, and a number of other evidence-based therapy techniques, along with affirmations that align with the very principle that Jack Canfield teaches. You can't outperform your own self-image. And as Louise Hay says, that's just a thought, and a thought can be changed. So any negative thoughts that you have, anything that's a negative thought that you kind of carry around with you as part of what we call your self-schema or your sense of self, that's just a thought. It's kind of gotten in there and gotten kind of lodged in there, like something stuck in your teeth. But that's just a thought, and a thought can be changed. And when we change our thinking, we change our life. That's a big Louise Hay quote. When we change our thinking, we change our life. Number 4 is use the law of attraction wisely. So Jack Canfield leans into the law of attraction, the idea that your mindset and your energy attract matching outcomes, that your interior somehow brings about a match with your exterior. So while I approach this with a certain psychological nuance, there is value here. When gay men dwell in self-loathing and scarcity or cynicism, they tend to attract relationships and environments that reflect those negative states. Because the unconscious mind doesn't like mismatches. If you feel bad about yourself, your unconscious mind goes, wait a minute, if I'm in a good environment, that doesn't match. We have to be in a bad environment. And the opposite's also true. When we feel good about ourselves and we're really embracing all the variations on a much more positive, or sometimes I like to say generative, way of thinking, it tends to create a more generative environment for us because the unconscious mind likes to have that symmetry, and it will drive us to that symmetry between the internal and the external. And the law of attraction, it's not necessarily magic or witchcraft or the supernatural, although some people like to incorporate those into their belief systems. Sorry, I sounded a little more sarcastic with that than I really wanted to. If you really believe in the supernatural, then, that is your right to do. That is your prerogative. That is your empowerment to do. But, whether you believe in something or anything or lots of things or nothing supernatural, the law of attraction between your unconscious mind and your external environment, and that is a thing. And then if you do believe in other supernatural things like the law of attraction or other kinds of things like that, well, then it just adds to it. But it's more about consistency in your thinking and your behavior and in your speech and in your actions, which is very much rooted in the science of psychology. In contrast, when we do the work to raise our sense of self-worth, as I encourage in my previous episode, Building Gay Male Confidence, they begin to manifest in things like healthier partners that we're dating or in a relationship with, more aligned careers that are more about what our real purposes of what we're meant to do in this lifetime, or better sexual experiences with partners, or more robust finances, more stable, more abundant, or more satisfying sex lives, or stronger communities of friends and the people around us. All of that comes when we do the work of raising our inner sense of self-worth, which can mean challenging any former negative thoughts, negative concepts that we've internalized because other people told us to. Number 5 is surround yourself with success-oriented people. This is critical. Canfield says you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. For gay men, especially those new to urban gay life or recovering from trauma, it's essential to seek supportive, growth-oriented peers, just good eggs, good people, not just the hookup or the convenient clique. Canfield recommends an exercise where you write down a list of the people that you have FaceTime, actual face-to-face time, not the FaceTime app, with. And next to the names of the people that you hang out with the most, put a plus mark if you experience that person as pleasant, encouraging, supportive of your goals, respectful, and compassionate to you. And now put a minus mark next to the names of people you experience as stressful or critical or not supportive, or people with values that you really don't like or respect. Then make a decision to systematically spend your time as much as you can, like at work, with the people with the plus signs, and make an effort to limit or avoid the people with the minus signs. Just gently shift. It's like shifting your weight from one foot to the other. Gently shift more to the people with those plus signs, and just gently begin to fade from the people who have the minus signs. Manipulate your own interpersonal, contextual, and social environment that way and see how it affects you over time. My guess is that it results in a subjective boost to your mood and functioning. And then as you go, maybe you identify more people who fit the bill to earn that plus sign next to their name. In my previous episode and discussion about toxic competition among gay men, I emphasized the danger of social environments that reward status over substance. Choosing your social circle wisely isn't just a success principle, it's a survival skill, especially to manage stress in the long haul. We need to be mindful that our everyday habits, thoughts, interactions affect our long-term health, for better or for worse. It's a little bit scary how the long-term cumulative effect of our habits can either extend our life and our health or actually truncate it. Declaring those around us to be toxic can be an overused kind of colloquial term, but we have to learn to deal with our not-so-favorite people to build resilience and get along, such as neighbors or people in the workplace you don't really have much choice to be around. But we can deliberately choose to be exposed to the people whose values align with ours. Values like compassion for other people, or for fairness, or for justice, or for patience, or for kindness, or who motivate us. And maybe even in a good way, who challenge us and call us out a little bit and keep us from getting complacent. Number 6 is clean up your incompletes. Unfinished business, whether it's emotional or relational or financial, clutters your energy. Gay men who are haunted by unresolved relationships or unspoken truths or goals that they abandon often feel stuck. And Canfield teaches that completing or consciously releasing these loose ends frees you up for forward movement. Louise Hay used to say, do the exercise of cleaning out your closets at home. She said, clutter of your home space is like your mind. When you clean out your closets or your kitchen cabinets or your garage or your office desk, you're cleaning out your mind. I often assign my clients small action steps to clean up these areas, literal spaces, or just mind spaces, whether that's ending a toxic friendship, there's an episode on that, of finishing a long overdue project, completion not perfection, as the saying goes, or confronting avoided truths. And just because something is not pleasant or not comfortable doesn't mean it's not worth doing. Oftentimes, the things that are especially valuable to our well-being are uncomfortable, but we do them because we want the comforts or the rewards on the other side of doing them. Like I've discussed recently about having a will or a trust or an advance directive for healthcare emergencies. These aren't the most pleasant topics to talk about death and dismemberment. However, taking a little bit of time to express what your values are, what your wishes are in the event of a major life tragic emergency that hopefully never happens, but for a certain percentage of us, it will. And so we need to be prepared for that and kind of hope for the best. But planning ahead just a little bit will help to protect us and to have our wishes fulfilled should an emergency like that ever happen. So look in the episode history and you'll find more about wills and trusts and particularly protecting yourself legally. Gay men always need to look out for their legal rights because our legal rights are pretty much constantly being challenged and undermined, and many attempts, especially here in 2025, to have them rolled back. Number 7 is celebrate your wins. This is huge for gay men who are often conditioned to be humble or hidden or to avoid showing off. But Canfield reminds us that celebrating a success reinforces it. I work with clients to shift from minimizing their victories to owning them. A promotion, a relationship milestone, a personal breakthrough in therapy, a goal reached in coaching, all of these things deserve recognition. In my work with clients, I'm a big believer in ritual and ceremony. Now, I'm an history fan and an amateur history buff. And if you look at history and culture, it is filled with rituals and ceremonies and occasions that make our global cultures rich in meaning. Think of the holiday season traditions, or observing a relationship anniversary, or blowing out the candles on a birthday cake. These are rituals that help to focus our thinking on what's important to us in our value system and helps us keep perspective on what's important in life, beyond the mundane. Number 8 is ask, ask, ask. Whether it's asking for a raise at work, or asking a guy out on a date, or asking someone for help with something, or asking for a new opportunity. Gay men sometimes struggle to advocate themselves because of these historic rejection wounds. And Jack Canfield encourages us to ask anyway. I very unabashedly brag about an internship I had in 1987. Yes, I'm that old. When the classic sitcom The Golden Girls was fairly early in its 7-year run on TV. And I got to shadow this enormously handsome director, Terry Hughes. And I met the ladies, the cast as they were called on the set, and to get to know the whole production, especially how it was directed. And people, especially gay men, often get rat-tickled, as my grandmother used to say, at that story. And they ask me how I got to do that, when every twink in Los Angeles wanted to work on that show. And I say, I asked. Now, I had to ask repeatedly to a gay crew member that I had met, not slept with, but met, who kind of took pity on me. And I had to pass inspection from the ladies to be there, all of whom were very kind to gay men in their own ways. But, I persisted. And since then, I haven't always asked all the time for what I want, but I have tried. Wonderful things happen when you ask. And even if the answer is no sometimes, you'd be surprised how often it actually is a yes. It takes energy to confront someone and tell them no. So many people will take the easy, even the lazy way out and just say yes just to keep you quiet and get you off their backs, especially if you come through on whatever you're asking about. That's a win-win. Now, asking doesn't guarantee a yes, but not asking guarantees a no. So ask. Here are some final thoughts. Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles, is more than just a self-help or motivational book. It's a blueprint. But gay men have to read it through the lens of our lived experiences, navigating marginalization, rewriting our internal narratives, talking back to our inner critics, and building a life that is both successful and self-defined. We define what successful means for us, and that might be different even from other gay men we know. So as a therapist and coach, I integrate these principles into my work every day. And if you're a gay man striving to build something meaningful, whether it's your business or a healthier relationship or a better sex life or a better mental health life or a better environment or a more confident self, you don't have to do it alone. You can reach out and let's build something together. You can reach me in the United States at 310-339-5778. That's 310-339-5778. That's also my number on WhatsApp. The easiest way is just to text me if you can at that number. That's always fastest and easiest, and we'll get probably the fastest response. Or you can also email ken@gaytherapyla.com if you're in California, a resident of California, and you're eligible for psychotherapy services where I'm licensed, or ken@gaycoachingla.com if you're in California and just want coaching instead of therapy, or anywhere in the United States or anywhere in the world. I do that a lot, and we just do we do the math of what time zone you're in and what time it is where you are versus what time it is with my office in Los Angeles. So I hope this was helpful. Consider buying Jack Canfield's book. He probably has plenty of money, but he could always use a little more. And you can probably find that on wherever you find books. And you can also find books by Louise Hay, I believe at hayhouse.com, I think. I think that's the website for her publishing company. And both of those are two of my favorites. There are others that I think have good material, but those are two of my favorites. And I think most of all for the sense of inspiration that they leave you with. It's energizing to read inspirational material because, once again, that word, it fuels our goals and our desires, and it makes us feel, this word again, empowered. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.